Welcome to Chalk Talk. I'm Mike Simpson, Superintendent of Guthrie Public Schools, and I'm joined today by two gentlemen that I consider friends that are also servant leaders in our community, and it's with our Guthrie Police Department Chief of Police, Don Sweger, and Logan County Sheriff, Damon Devereaux. And gentlemen, thanks for joining me today. Real happy to have you guys. I know you take time out of your busy day to come in here and talk a little bit about some things with school safety, but kind of introduce yourself to most people know you, both of you, but just a brief introduction on who you are and what all you do.
I'll defer to the chief.
I'm Don Sweger. I've been here for about 10 years now, serving the great citizens of Guthrie and helping out with Logan County. I don't have a whole lot to say other than this is one of the few communities where I've really seen multiple facets of law enforcement and the schools work together so seamlessly and proactively to benefit the needs of the community and the student body.
Damon Devereaux, Sheriff Logan County, been sheriff since 17, been around Guthrie all my life. I second what Don says. I think we have a common goal to ensure the safety of our staff, our citizens, and to work really well with all facets of that.
Well, that's the thing that, and gosh, Chief, you almost 10 years. It seems like yesterday that Damon had retired from being the police chief, and we were having discussions with you, and now we've got Damon as a sheriff. And how many years now is it for you as county sheriff?
Going on 8.
Golly, time flies. Talk a little bit for.
He should wear our shoes. Huh?
Well, I said the other day, I was talking with a friend, and I put this in a column that the days are long, but the years are short.
Well, that's
Very true.
And the more I say that, the more it rings true with me, and I know it probably does with you guys as well, because we all put in long days, but you look back and you go, wow.
Years gone.
8 years,
yeah.
10 years, going on 12 with me and this job, and it just seems like yesterday that, and I can remember the very first year that I was superintendent and you were police chief, and the Newtown shooting, and we had some things happen at the high school, and people were not in a good place.
No.
In some ways, I think they've almost become desensitized to some of the violence that goes on in a school. But at that time, they were anything but desensitized. And next thing I know, we've got 4 TV stations with cameras pointed at both of us to talk about how we're going to keep our kids safe.
Oh, yeah. I remember that day.
So just before we get into the school safety stuff, talk a little bit for anyone that maybe doesn't understand the differences in the roles that you two guys play with law enforcement in the community and the county.
Boy, howdy.
Briefly.
Well, I'll go first, Don, on that one, since you did. As I'm sure most of you guys know, I'm elected. Where I have to campaign every 4 years to keep my job. Don just has to satisfy the city manager.
Just
satisfy. Where we differ in what we do as agencies, everything I do is operated off state statute. The legislature basically sets everything that we operate under. As to where at the city, they've got the city council that can enact all sorts of different things. We don't have animal control. We don't have city ordinances. We don't have planning. We don't have a lot of that stuff. It's more the rural type law enforcement. And, of course, we have our 168-bed jail to operate.
Yeah.
So Damon, he operates primarily in the non-incorporated jurisdictions of the county, although he, as an elected official, has law enforcement authority over the entirety of Logan County, unless, of course, there's some federal jurisdiction in there somewhere, but I don't think there really is.
I don't think there is in Logan County, yeah.
So it's not that Damon cannot come in and work and do stuff inside of Guthrie. It's just that he spends his time out in the county where they don't have traditional law enforcement.
Sure, that's our priority.
So the good thing is me and my department, we handle most of what's inside Guthrie city limits. We supplement the sheriff's office whenever we can, and vice versa. It's a very good working relationship. Damon's never going to call up and ask me for people, and I'm going to say no, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. We have a Logan County special response team, and it's primarily made of Logan County and Guthrie PD people. We have our differences from time to time, but we know at the end of the day, our goal is to best serve this community and its needs for law enforcement. And, and if for us to argue or fight or anything like that, we are not doing that. So any problems we ever have, we get over, we get across, and we get through, because ultimately Damon and I both know what our responsibilities are. And you know, we're here talking with you today, and the school and the children of this county are, I mean, you talk about serving citizens. I can't talk about serving anybody more deserving than innocent children or the very elderly.
Yeah. Sure. You know, the interesting thing, because I know both of you fairly well, the interesting thing is, Damon, you have been a police chief. And Don, you've been a county sheriff.
Correct.
So you guys both know the difference. And and the thing that kind of that struck me, that I kind of had an aha moment, maybe it was last spring or something. I can't remember what all came up. But so, Damon, your deputies, they can't write parking tickets because that's a city ordinance.
Correct.
And that was something, I can't remember how it came up, but somebody was complaining that the sheriff wouldn't do anything about the parking. Well, it's a city ordinance that they can't enforce. And
we can't enforce city ordinances.
Yeah, and it was kind of an aha moment when I kind of figured that one out and tried to explain that to someone who I'm sure probably was on social media maybe or something like that. But we'll leave that alone. So let's talk a little bit about school safety and what all, this has been, we've had a really good year to start in Guthrie,
sure,
but there's been a whole lot of stuff around us with regard to school safety. We've had reports of guns. We've had a shooting at a high school football game where somebody lost their life. We've had reports of guns in Tulsa at high school football games. Just as we're taping this yesterday, there was a report of a gun in a high school in Oklahoma City metro area. You know, did all of this? The thing that I had a conversation with the OSSAA executive director. With all of the things that we've dealt with through the years, this was the first time that there was a death due to a shooting at a high school football game. Obviously, we've done a lot of things with security in the schools, and it's a lot more of a challenge to look at an outside event where we're bringing people in. Unless we're just going to not bring, play in front of no crowd, it's a lot greater challenge to try to provide a safe environment. We've done some tweaks and some things, but talk a little bit about that part of it, and then I want to talk a little bit about the school itself and the safety inside the school. So at games. And Damon, most of your guys are the ones that do the security at the games, but I know we've made some changes and well,
I mean, obviously the biggest challenge is it's an outdoor event where you don't have complete control over that event 360 degrees. The way we try to combat that obviously is foot patrols, and then I think in our community. The biggest asset we have are those that go to those football games, that listen, the parents, the friends that call us and say, hey, I heard this, I heard that. Try to be proactive in chasing those calls down. But, I mean, it's you look at some of the bigger stadiums that have metal detectors and stuff like that you have to go through. And that may be something at some point in time that we have to institute. Yeah. With our stadium, having the 2 points of entries and exit, that helps. Only having one on each side, but it's routine patrols, lots of foot traffic, and again, keeping our eyes to the crowd and what's going on. Like I said, they're our biggest asset to information is the people that we serve.
We had report of a weapon at our last home football game, but that person was already gone. I watched as people got on social media thinking they knew what had actually happened, but we involved Guthrie PD. We involved the officers, the deputies that we had on staff there that night. All the administration responded, and we made sure that the person of interest, I guess is what you'd call him, sure, was no longer in the stadium. But, you look at, I've been to events at OU, I've been to events at OSU. They don't do it the same way. No. OU, went down there for any event at OU, even the state softball tournament this last weekend. You go through a metal detector. You go to Stillwater, yeah, and they'll search your bag, but you're not going through a metal detector. So there's not any set protocols even for the college level. And so that's where I think we've tried to respond to what is needed by the community to make sure that, and if you see something, say something type of thing. And that's what led to the discovery of that gun at that high school yesterday, is a parent reported it. And so that's something that I think we try to rely on, that I know having officers in the school, sure, that develop relationships with the kids make a huge difference there. And both departments are very important with us continuing to do that. So talking a little bit about the school and what we do inside the school, and how do we keep kids safe every day. Tell me what you think what we've done that has made the biggest impact.
I think probably the thing that Guthrie Schools has done that made the biggest impact is they have not, they have not jumped the gun, they have not overreacted, they have not tried to take a cookie-cutter approach. Like you talked about a minute ago, you can't go to any game throughout the state, college or high school, where they all are the same. And the reason for that is because we all serve these different communities that have different expectations, and we have to find ways to make ourselves present and known without offending the will of the people.
Sure. Sure. I mean, you try to create an environment that everybody's going to enjoy and not feel intimidated, harassed, or anything like that. So we try to handle it in such a way that we have bodies there, we have people there that are paying attention, that are watching, but not making it feel like it's a takeover. Well,
yeah, we can put razor wire around the high school, sure, and have a guard shack and people stand guard, but that's called a prison.
Yep.
That's not a learning environment.
Correct.
The Chief and Sheriff, each of you have officers in our buildings. Some are dedicated SROs, some are working off duty.
Sure.
Our goal is to have one in every building whenever it's open. Tell me what effect that has on the building, on the kids, and on the staff, from your perspective.
I think that can have nothing but a positive effect. And I'm in my position, I travel the state and talk to many other law enforcement agencies, just like Damon does. And, the consistent story that I get all across the state is, they either don't have an SRO or they have one, and they've got, 30 buildings that are unmanned. And, having a law enforcement presence inside of each building every day that it's open, whenever possible or whenever feasible. I mean, I truly believe in my heart that is a life changer for all those kids and the parents of those kids. Sure. I know it costs money, it costs personnel, my end, your end, but I can't be more thankful that Guthrie Public Schools has recognized that and taken, extraordinary steps to address that need to keep these kids safe. And I think, in my heart of hearts, should the worst ever happen, you're going to have a guy or a girl right there who's ready to respond and ready to take action, instead of, we got to come from even 2 minutes away. 2 minutes when you've got somebody in a building that's shooting a gun those are just lives lost.
The other thing that always went through my mind when we made that commitment is having that person there, but also the ability to, while that person is there, if they need help, it's much faster for them to get on their radio to get the officers that are on patrol mobilized than it is for someone to go to a phone, call 911, go through a dispatcher. I mean, we're talking maybe a minute and a half, but that minute and a half may make the difference.
Sure. Well, if we've got a big crash going on in the interstate or somewhere like that, and dispatch is getting all these 911 calls, now the school's trying to call, they can't get in. It's radio communications is obviously the quickest way to. That's why we use it for a quick response. And to kind of talk about what Chief said is not only, does it give everybody kind of an ease, if you will, that we've got a police officer or a deputy in these schools, is the relationships that they're building with the staff and with the students and with the parents, and sometimes not always a good relationship, as we found out. It gets a little tense sometimes with some of the parents, but it's having those people in there that are making the connections, that are getting the intel, that are there to, again, just listen. And if you listen, you can pretty much figure out what's going to happen or what could happen, because the kids are going to talk.
Yeah, and I'm sure Damon's the same way. I talk to my 3 SROs on a regular basis, and it's always, a kid came up and told me that something was going on so we could address it, or a kid just needed someone to talk to, or, hey, a kid wanted to come up and say hi because they've never known a police officer in a good situation before. So that relationship, while it's good for the school, it's also very good for us because, we live in a time where law enforcement is looked at differently by some people, and when you're raised in an environment, you tend to adopt those beliefs, and I look at it as we're there every day to sell these people on. We're not the bad guy. We do what we have to do sometimes, but we're here for you. We're here for your safety, and we're here for whenever and however we can help.
The thing that comes to mind when you mention that, Chief, is the reality is there are probably some kids that the only thing they've seen the police do is maybe serve a warrant or take somebody in from their family, and that's an important part of what police work is, I know, but that's such a small portion of what they do.
But in their lives, man, it's that huge event.
That's all they know, though.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's why I heard a success story just this last week about one of our SROs and how they were reaching out to some of our kids that really didn't know the other side of their and the thing that I learned a long time ago, and that's why I consider both of you guys friends, is on the other side of that badge is a person that's just trying to protect people and serve people. That's right. And it's kind of like teachers too. There's not all of them are great people. There are some that are bad actors.
Sure.
But that doesn't mean that they all are, or that the majority of them are, because I know the majority of your folks walk out there every day knowing that that the worst could happen, and they walk out there every day to serve others.
And with law enforcement, just like teachers, none of us got into it to be rich.
Yeah.
No. We all got into it believing that we could help other people and we could make a difference. Are there some bad actors on the police side, on the teacher side? Absolutely.
Yeah.
You pick any profession and you're going to have that. Ours, police and educators, are way more visible because we interact with these students on a daily basis, and people hold you way up high on this pedestal that is sometimes very hard to reach. And although we strive for it every day, you do get someone in there every now and then that you just got to get rid of because they are not there to do the right thing. And we need people with the servant's heart that are there that lay down their lives for these kids if necessary, and I mean teachers too, because I know teachers that would.
Yeah.
And if you're not there, you're not 100% there, then you need another job someplace else, because this is job number one, and you can't get more important than those kids in those schools every stinking day.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about kind because we've had these discussions, and for the listeners and viewers to know, we've had several times that the three of us have sat down to talk about worst case scenarios and what we would do. So I want everyone to know that we do have those discussions. And so talk about, in your mind, a worst case scenario and what we would do to work through that. And because I know the thing I remember, Damon, you telling me is the first thing is I've got to get out of the way and let law enforcement work. There's that. You know, my nature is to go help kids.
Sure.
But sometimes I know that turns into your work.
That's the thing is sometimes you became, in worst case scenario, you could be someone else that now we're tasked to protect as well. Yeah. And we've got enough on our plate. Obviously, worst case scenario, God forbid, is somebody try to go into our school to hurt our kids. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, knowing the Chiefs guys, knowing my guys, you know, I mean, it's all hands on deck, and we're going hunting. Mm-hmm. And
I think in this day and age, a lot of people, when I talk about Uvalde mm-hmm. and the failures that happened there, and Damon and I both, we make very clear our expectations when we're hiring people. We are, you know, we're not going to sit on the sidelines and wait and watch and listen to people die. We're going to go in and we're going to take care of the problem. And if that costs us a life or two of our own, then that's it. Those kids' lives are worth more than ours any day of the week because they're young, they're innocent, they got a full life ahead of them, and we signed on for that. Yeah. And my guys are not going to fail doing that, and Damon's guys are not going to fail doing that. This is, I don't know what the heck happened in Texas. I would have expected 1,000 times worse, and I really hope every one of those guys were fired or prosecuted. I do, because it was absolutely asinine. It goes against every tactic or legality that we have to look at when we plan these things. From day one, the approach is, you have something like that, you have something bad going on in the school, your officers go in force, you go in one at a time if you have to, if you're the first one there, and you address the problem. If you don't, you're a failure, you're a loser, and you need to be fired or you need to be prosecuted.
You know, it's really hard to – I try to never play armchair quarterback to another situation that I'm not in the middle of, but when you look at that, it's really hard to not do that, because I think I had a conversation shortly after that where we put our heads together about that whole situation and said, you know, if law enforcement had said, no, we're not going in yet, I might have gone in myself. Sure. And you know, so I'm not here to judge that, but I think reassuring our community of what our priorities are is a very important piece to this whole thing. And
I got to tell you, Doc, I hate armchair quarterbacks, and what I said is an armchair quarterback thing, but it is so plainly evident on so many levels that there was nothing but failure after failure after failure. It's hard to watch. It's hard to watch, and it's hard to keep your mouth shut.
Well, and there's a part of it being armchair quarterback, and there's a part of it of learning from what they did wrong.
Sure.
I mean, there's so that it's not repeated. You know, this is where the old history teacher comes out, and me. You know, we learn from our mistakes so that we don't repeat them. Yep. And you know, keeping the kids safe involves a commitment that you don't have. Sometimes you don't have time for a committee meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and like, you know, I look at something like that as almost an act of war on our turf, and we're going to go to war. Yeah. And there's going to be casualties. You know, and obviously, if you know, this is going to sound horrible, but if there's going to be casualties, I'd rather it be us going in trying to fight this war than it be the innocents.
Yeah. That you know, and that's why it's reassuring to know that we're doing what we can to keep our kids safe. The thing that I've learned through the years is a bad person can get to wherever they want to go if they want to go there bad enough. Sure. But that doesn't mean that there can't be some struggle along the way to slow them down and neutralize them. And that's part of what our layers are. You know, there's things that we don't tell the public about our layers
Sure.
of security. And I think sometimes there's people that think they should know everything about our security, but there are some things out there that are not made public, and that are different layers that.
Sure.
Our job is not to make it easier for the bad guy.
Yeah.
And giving away some of those secrets that really aren't all that secret, but we don't want to broadcast them. We're not going to make it easy on a bad guy. If a bad guy wants to come in, then he's going to have to get through all that, and one of our guys and whoever else is coming right behind us.
Right.
We're not going to make it easy on him. Our goal is to keep him or her out at all costs. And God forbid they make it in, we're going to solve that problem.
There's been a lot of the stuff you've done, you know, to help kind of fortify some of the emphasis and stuff like that. That is huge. You know, there's, you know, you talk.
Well, and you start talking about the value in this bond issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, historically, you know, we've had some reluctance on passing some of these bond issues, but some of these people don't understand that we've taken that money and not given to law enforcement necessarily, but have fortified those schools to make them closer to the vault almost that they need to be without making it look like a prison.
Yeah.
These kids don't deserve to live in a prison. They've done nothing wrong. But we all, at the same time, we have to make it very strong. And thanks to the voters, we have the ability. You have the ability to do some of that out there.
We're in it together.
That's huge. Slowing people down into the school.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yeah. So you guys have both got fairly lengthy, distinguished careers in law enforcement.
Lengthy, yes.
Oh, this is great.
Right.
What's changed since you got into it?
Oh, man. Probably, especially when you're talking about schools, probably one of the bigger things that me and my guys run into out there are, and it sounds like a bad word, and it's not really, but there's a lot more entitlement. I think with the internet and stuff, people feel they deserve a lot more than we can safely give them sometime, and that's both from law enforcement's end and from the school's end. You know, back in the day, you know, you either got what you asked for or you're given a pretty gruff go the heck away. And today, you know, the expectation within the community is that, you know, we still be able to give both answers, but we have to do it more kinder, friendlier, gentler, because people have different expectations today than they had back then. It was easier to give someone a very simple answer and they accept it, and today it's, well, that's fine, but why? Mm-hmm. And we have to be able to, you know, we have to have the knowledge base to be able to deliver that to people, or they get really, really upset. And so we take a lot of pride in being able to give those answers and you know, allow people in or give people information without giving away what we don't want to give away, and without offending the people that are asking for it.
That's a balancing act that I think that's been progressive too.
Yes.
I've seen that as well.
Yeah, you see it in the schools. Well, I think the biggest thing that the change that I've seen over my career is we became the bad guys. You know, we became, you know, a target for assaults, for murders, for whatever.
Anything bad that happens inside society is obviously the sheriff's fault.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that seeing the change of us being the bad guys versus at one time respected the guys that did the right thing, that held people accountable, and now people think that we just arbitrarily make these decisions to make their life hell. And
that's one of the reasons why we take that job in the school so seriously, because if we're ever going to change that opinion, you know, it's got to start when they're young, when their minds are a little bit more malleable and open. And I'm not talking about brainwashing. Those kids are not stupid. They sit there and they watch those officers interact every day, and they can make up their own mind whether it's good or bad. And I'm a firm believer that most of the time they go, hey, this isn't what I've been told, or this isn't what I've learned, and I think that makes a huge difference.
Well, and I can relate that back to my jail when I go back there and have interaction with inmates and stuff like that, and I've had several that have had the privilege of staying in my hotel for quite a while.
Many times and long.
And I get to know them, and they're like, I had no idea that you guys could be so cool that you could, and and I tell them all the time, you know, and everybody when I speak or anything, you know, sheriff's what I do for a living. Damon's who I am. And I said, I will always treat you guys with respect. Now, there's some people back there that
when they allow you to.
Yeah. When they allow. Yeah. But the interaction that they have with us on a one-on-one basis and realizing that what they've been told and stuff like that, seeing some change in their demeanor when we come around, where they're actually happy to see us, is kind of an interesting dynamic that I never thought I would see in a jail setting. But you know, and following those guys around when they get out and check on them, see how they're doing and stuff like that. I mean, it's kind of like the SROs, and you know, it's not the same, but
right.
You know, but you build those relationships with those guys, and
it doesn't stop the minute they walk out the door.
Service after the sale.
Yeah. So I mean, seeing them out working somewhere and patting them on the back, saying hi to them, congratulating.
And you've got the same thing at the school.
Work.
You know, you have a kid that comes in and he gets in a little bit of trouble and he gets a 3-day suspension or 7-day suspension. That doesn't mean that kid's no good.
Yep.
It means the kid made a mistake, and when he comes back, we're gonna start right at the beginning again and try to pick up where we left off. We're not going to start with, oh, that kid's a bad kid forever. It's not true.
Praise him for doing something right.
Yes, hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
So the last thing before we kind of wrap up, I wanted to ask both of you because of your careers and everything. What's been the highlight of your career so far?
It will not sound very good at all, but I'm going to tell you the highlight of my career happens every day when I know I get to serve my community again.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds crappy, but I mean, it's true. You either get into this job to be a servant and look forward to serving those people, or you get into it for a paycheck. And paychecks aren't that great in this line of work. No. So to me, it's when I wake up in the morning, and I'm not going to say I'm excited every day to come to work, but I know in my heart I get one more day because I woke up that morning of serving the people that I swore to uphold and protect their rights. And that's exciting to me, and it keeps me going. It makes my little heart happy.
Well, I mean, that was corny as
I know.
No, but that's right. I mean, that's why we do this job, you know? I mean, to put up with all the headaches with, you look at guys in our positions and your positions, you know, you got the fight of the public, you got the fight of the staff, you got, it's a balance to try to do everything you can for your staff to make them want to come to work every day. And then the public side that's usually upset with your staff or a situation, and sometimes we don't have the answer that they want, but that's the way it works. Being elected was probably the high point that people trusted me in this position. Probably, to echo a little bit what Chief said is coming to work and being with the people that I work with every day. We've coming in as the sheriff and you as police chief, kind of outside, but building the bond with those men and women that stand with you on the front lines every day, seeing those guys serving the public. It's, when we look at what that means to us, and we don't get it in our paycheck, and we knew that. But the pats on the back that we get, out of just randomness or whatever, that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
Is knowing that the job that we're doing, the people respect it and want
it's
us
a good
to keep
job,
doing it.
and it's a righteous job, and it's sometimes
it
it's thankless. But when you've come into it with that in your heart instead of a paycheck, thankless days we don't like thankless days, but holy crap, we can know tomorrow when we wake up it's going to be a bad day, and it doesn't matter because in my heart I still get to do the service that I want to do and that I swore to do.
Well, and I think all three of us have, at times in our career, have dealt with tragedy. We know what a bad day is, and knowing that, having that perspective, I think really helps us to identify those good days.
Sure.
That otherwise would seem mundane, but sometimes I think with all three of us, sometimes boring is not bad.
No, sometimes boring is what you're hoping for.
And and I think back to the day of the fire, and I'm out at the command post and on a radio and put buses at all of our schools to communicate because all the communication has gone down. But, Damon, you were right there giving me the most accurate information I could because we weren't sure what we were going to have to do with Charter Oak.
Sure.
And it took, Chief, it took your officers to get me through the traffic to get to the command post because it was such a mess.
And again, I mean, that's something that happened in the county, the far, south edge of the county, and my guys are out there.
Yeah, your guys are there.
Because school needs them and Damon needs them.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
We're not about leaving any of our citizens, it doesn't matter if they live inside the city, and really it doesn't matter if they live inside Logan County. If we can help and we have servant hearts, by God, we're going to find a way to do it.
Yeah. That's what makes the relationship I think that we have here special.
Sure.
When I talk with other school administrators and kind of tell them about the relationship that we have, they're very jealous because we find a way to work together, and we all have a common goal. And so I want to really, I just can't thank you guys enough for all that you do for our community, for our Guthrie Public Schools, and the people you serve, because the people you serve will never truly appreciate all the great things that you're doing.
I appreciate that, Mike.
Yes, very much.
Well, I think that's a wrap for this show. I want to really thank Sheriff Damon Devereaux and Chief Don Sweger for joining us today on Chalk Talk. We really appreciate all that they do to help us keep our schools safe, along with their team of talented and dedicated staff. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Mike Simpson. I hope you can join us again on Chalk Talk.